Well, I've been hearing from so many parents who have so many questions about their high school athletes and the restrictions that are being put on parents. And to get some answers, we've invited on the show the executive director of the WIAA, Mick Hoffman. Once again, joins us here on the Dori Monson Show. Hey, Mick, it's good to talk to you again. I appreciate you coming on with me today.
Yeah, it's good to be back and be able to talk about kids finally getting to play.
Yeah, I got to tell you, 2 weeks ago today, my wife and I went to Colorado to visit some good friends. They have a couple daughters who play on a high school basketball team. We watched a game, went to a game that night, and I thought, man, this is something that I haven't been able to experience in over a year now in our state. It really felt good to get out there. So now football has started. There were 5 games canceled in the South Sound on Friday. Was that COVID related?
Yeah, my understanding is they had either somebody had tested positive within their team or somebody was around somebody who had tested positive, could be a family member or what have you. And if they are not able to do a solid contact tracing to assure or know who was possibly exposed, then they just shut it down. So, the schools are being really conservative with it to make sure err on the side of caution at this point as we start to roll out the season.
But what is that based on? I mean, I'm always asking, what is the data? I just saw a study out of Wisconsin, from the University of Wisconsin. They had kids playing high school sports back starting last May, and they studied 30,000 high school kids, and there was no transmission. There was one case among the 30,000 study. So why are we shutting down games if one kid maybe was exposed?
Well, right now, those are the guidelines that if we're going to play, that we have to play under, right, coming from the state. And so, you'd have to ask them. For us, it's our state has erred on the side of caution. I mean, sometimes it's been incredibly frustrating for all of us. We also know we have some of the best data, so again, struggling to find where that threshold is. But why do we do it? It's because right now we've been told if you want to play, this is what you have to do.
Yeah, and I'm not faulting you. I know that you and your staff, I know the ADs, the coaches, they all want to be back. But do you press the state when they hand down? And let me give you another example. I got an email last week from a soccer mom at Everett High School, and they're not allowed in the stadium to watch their daughter play her senior year. And so she and her husband and the other parents sit in lawn chairs on the sidewalk where they have a peekaboo view. Again, do you, when the state hands down these guidelines, do you say, what sense does that make? I mean, why couldn't these people socially distance in an outdoor stadium?
Yeah, no, we actually have pushed enough and asked enough questions and enough emails that we've been given a weekly meeting where we get to address these topics. And what we were told this last Friday is the state is reviewing the spectator issue. Now, one thing for clarity, the state is saying 25% of fire code or 200 total people, whatever is less. And then, so like in a soccer match, it's up to the school to decide who they allow into the stadium of those 200. So that includes all your participants and game personnel and also spectators. And, in some cases, schools just don't have the ability to manage. I will tell you, we are dealing with issues with parents at games right now where they are being allowed, a few of them where they refuse to wear masks. And so the game personnel are having to deal with that, confrontations. And so people have really strong feelings around masking. And so schools are, easing into that. But as far as do we push back on the state? Yeah, absolutely. When they make decisions that don't make sense, we're not going to defend them. We're just going to explain them. And keep pushing for change. And to their credit, they're reviewing the spectator limitations. They're reviewing the possibility of the high-risk indoor sports, wrestling and cheer, dance, and basketball. So we're getting some progress. They switched their masking policy on gymnastics and cross country after a few conversations. So, yeah, I guess so. The answer to your question is yes, but it's a very laborious process.
Yeah, the another one I heard about, they have a brand new high school stadium up in Blaine, seats 2,000 people, and the state's guideline is you can have 200 at the games, as you just said, but that includes the players, the coaching staff, the officials, and so each school is having many of the schools, they have a little raffle or not a raffle, but a drawing to get tickets among the seniors' parents. And again, I'm thinking, so if there are 40 spectators in a 2,000-seat stadium, that's just one of the silliest things I can imagine, an outdoor stadium. And they better review this because it's really ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's a prime example of one where we said, we can't really defend that, so we tried to understand why they're doing it. And what they said is, the rules they're putting out apply to high school sports, apply to community sports, so they apply to the collegiate and the professional level. So they're really, really cautious with it. And, in the meantime, we're explaining we have seniors playing right now that have 3-4 games left to where their parents can come watch. And so that's a big one for us. We're gaining some traction. We're not there yet. And I'm just hoping we get there to parents. So, I will tell you this, though. 2-3 months ago, all we heard from parents were just let our kids play. That's all we care about. Just let the kids get on the field. Now the kids are on the field. Human nature. Let us in the stadium. So we get that. So that's a sign of progress because now we're dealing with our traditional issues. But yeah, as a parent, that would be heartbreaking not to be able to go watch your child play, especially in his or her senior year.
Yeah, exactly. And I know football parents are always afraid of injury. I heard about another parent who was watching their kid's game on YouTube, and their kid was laid out on the field. They ran to their car, drove as fast as they could to the stadium, ran past security, and I know football parents, they want to be there, in case something happens as well. So last thing for you, Mick. Lots of school districts have said they've shut down any possibility of in-class teaching for the rest of the school year. A lot of major school districts here in the Puget Sound area. How are you going to let kids play basketball and wrestling, these sports that are traditionally winter sports that are going to play in late spring? How are you going to let them do that if the teachers refuse, or the teachers union refuses to teach the kids in person?
Yeah, well, ultimately it's up to each school district to decide. But for us, with athletics and activities, there's far less logistics. To open up for in-person learning, you have a K-12 system. So especially those younger students, if their parents are anticipating them being back and parents are starting to return to their places of work, then all of a sudden that gets canceled. They got to come up with daycare. With an athletic team, especially at the high school level, which is primarily what we're talking about, those kids are old enough to be self-sufficient for the most part, right? And the other piece is you just call them cancel practice, and that's the end of it. You're not dealing with bus drivers and everything else. The other piece is a lot of the school districts are having to negotiate, their contracted employees in unions and the ability to get people to come back and do it safely. So there's so many different logistics with that. Basketball, or wrestling, if we do get the chance, or cheer dance, I would be shocked if we were able to have any fans, let alone the 200 limit, to let kids play. So at this point, we're really focused on just the opportunity, because like you referenced the University of Wisconsin study, there's been a couple. There's been I think there was a newer one that had about 150-some thousand from around the country where they surveyed all 50 states. And, transmission rates were very, very low. They weren't nothing.
Yeah.
They were very, very low. So There's more and more data coming out to support that. But the in-person learning is far more complicated than sports.
Got it. Okay. When did you get this job, Mick? Was it fall of 19?
Seems like 20 years ago. It was a year ago. So this is my second year. So 19, I guess that'd be right.
Man, nice timing, Mick. I'm sure
Mike was the master. He knew when to get out. He was the only guy who foresaw a pandemic coming. I don't know how he did it. But.
Yeah, no, because I know why you guys get into these jobs, and for this to be dumped on your plate as soon as you got the gig. That's it's got to be tough. So appreciate what you do, Mick, and glad you came on with me today.
You bet. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, you bet. Mick Hoffman, Executive Director of the WIAA. Lots more straight ahead on the Dori Monson Show.